Hey, you guys, this is the Couplings Fire podcast. Here's a couple of things you might need to know, or maybe you just forgot. I'm Taylor, a volunteer firefighter, and also a firewife to my favorite firefighter. Join me as I talk anything and everything fire-related. I don't claim to be an expert. I just love to talk fire, and everything I say is my own opinion. My goal? To inspire anyone listening to take the steps to bettering their department, however they can. Let's get on to the episode. All right. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. I am really excited this week because I have a good friend on the line. I have David Stender, and I'm going to let him say a couple things about himself.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, my name's David Stender. I'm on volunteer fire department, Centerpoint Fire Department, to be specific, here in eastern Iowa. Small town department, small town, 2,500. We have about 23 members right now. We can have up to 25. Myself personally, this is my 20th year, so it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I mean, yet it does. And looking back, I'm glad I'm at where I'm at now and not, at 5 years on, not knowing anything. So yeah. So
that's crazy. 20 years. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So we got a couple of different topics we're going to go over tonight. We're going to talk about some out-of-house trainings things and networking. And it's something that I've wanted to do episodes on these topics for a while. And they've been kind of saved in the bank, just waiting for either myself to have the right words or to find somebody else who wanted to talk about them as much as I did. And so Dave apparently decided that he wanted to talk about these as much.
Sure. Yeah. It's one of my things is like, I'd rather have somebody that's going to training, showing up for training all the time, and maybe doesn't make all the calls, but at least if they're showing up at the trainings and they're getting familiar how to work with other guys or other gals on the department, that I know at least when they do show up that they'll be able to do what they need to do on the job. So
yeah. And this is the public, what's the correct word? Political correctness little spiel I'm going to put in here. I'm not good at saying guys and girls.
Right.
And I'm a girl, so I'm just going to say guys all the time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hopefully,
okay.
I was going to say, hopefully my listeners know by now that when I say guys, I mean guys and girls,
Right.
So I'm all inclusive, but I'm not going to spend that much time brain power thinking about that when I want to spend it on talking about real stuff.
Yes, I hear
you. So anyways,
no, as far as the outside training, so it was probably 2010-ish or so. The way our structure was set up at our fire department, we had a chief, an assistant chief, 2 deputy chiefs, and 3 captains, and then firefighters. And how it was is our deputy chiefs were the training officers. So it kind of tag team between those two to come up with training each month or week. Initially, when I was started on the fire department, the first Wednesday of the month was our business meeting, which it still is. And then the third Wednesday of the month was our training. So it'd be part medical, part fire. What happened then is eventually it came to pretty much we were all showing up every Wednesday night. And so we just kind of made it a thing like every Wednesday night is training, except for that first Wednesday of the month. And it works out good. I mean, because you don't have everybody there all the time. There's always people that, have family stuff going on, which is understandable. Not a big deal. So we were doing great as far as training, having, tag teaming and stuff. It worked out great. And then things kind of dribble off a little bit, and, people kind of get a little more lazy, I guess. I don't know if that's right or not, but, and then, well, to back up, our fire department used to be city fire department. Then back in 1994, not to get into the whole rigmarole, it became an agency fire department. So we had 2 township members and 2 city members, and then 1 at large made up our agency. And they pretty much they controlled our money for our department and what was going to be spent on, kind of thing. And we had not a huge budget at all. And it was all right, but not super huge. We kind of tossed around the idea of becoming a city department again, and some people are kind of hesitant on that just because of the things that happened before. But the chief that we have currently, who's been chief for I think 13 years, he got on just a couple of years before me, and so we talked about it and we decided, hey, why not talk to the city about becoming a city department again? So that happened about 6 years ago, I believe, is when that took place, and we became a city department. Instantly, our budget pretty much tripled.
It's not bad.
Yeah. And I think just before we became city department, we all the firefighters went down to the city council meeting, all in our blue fire shirts. And basically we went down there to talk to them about, hey, we need a new fire engine because we got equipment that's just, seen better days. And they're like, sure, go ahead, spec one out. And we were all just like stunned that they, yeah, it was crazy. And so we got a new fire truck. And then right after that, I believe it's pretty much when we became city fire department. So our budget tripled. And then 2 years after that was the start of working on getting a new fire station. So that's what's currently happening. Our new fire station is being built right now.
That's awesome.
But what happened then after becoming city fire department, we decided we kind of sort of had an association, kind of like our fundraiser association of the fire department. And we decided, like, okay, we're kind of getting a little bit big on this and we want to do things right and truly be a nonprofit. So we set up a whole nonprofit, the 501c3 thing. And that's called Blue Creek Fire Incorporated, just because Blue Creek runs through town, kind of, sort of. And so it wasn't like, people won't get confused on the two different names of the fire department, kind of.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then so we added a whole bylaws for that. In the meantime, I rethought of our whole structure of the fire department itself. So instead of having, because we were hurting for numbers too, so I thought, well, why don't we just have chief, 2 assistant chiefs, and then 4 captains, and which worked out fine. It's the same number of officers, I think, maybe one less, and it worked out fine. And that's how we are currently now. And it hasn't really affected anything. So one of the assistant chiefs, he's in charge of training. And then I'm a captain, so I help out with training as well. I help coordinate things if he needs help. So it's not a big deal. And so that's where we are now. So as the training thing, it leads into, I'm a fire instructor. So I did that. I got my fire instructor 1 back in 2007, I want to say. I'm not sure. I think that's right. So I got my instructor. Why? I don't know. I thought maybe I was going to teach. I didn't really do a whole lot with it. I mean, I did the in-house training stuff. And again, teaching right out of what, the books or what I had learned from whatever somebody else had taught me at the fire station.
Well, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Or maybe even some things from, going to a couple of fire schools. And at the time, I'd always gone to the fire school out in Ames. It was always in the winter, so it was the winter fire school. And so I'd go to that, maybe learn something, and not necessarily always teach any of that stuff back at our department. Then I think it was in 2015, maybe. So we have at our community college in Cedar Rapids in the fall, they have it's called CITA, CITA. It's the Central Iowa Training Association. And they just had the training this last weekend. So it's a Saturday, Sunday event, and they have all kinds of different trainings that come up. And so I had never gone to it, even though it's so close to home. I mean, 20-minute drive away. I'd never gone to it until probably about 5 years ago, just because I thought, well, it's so rinky dink and it's kind of so close. And there's, I was in that mindset, oh, it's so close. And I'm not going to learn anything. And it's almost the same as like having an in-house instructor in your fire department teaching your own people and then not listening.
Yes, I understand that.
But if I have you come into my department and say the exact same things that I was going to say, they're going to be like all attentive and listening to every word you say. But if I say it, they're not going to pay attention. They'll be on their phones or like whatever.
Oh, so, definitely. It's the same thing as, little kids. And
yeah.
Us in the fire service, we are little kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We run around like cats. Like, you can't keep us in a row, like we scratch and fight and whatever, right? Like, but we won't listen to our own parents when they try to tell us, no, something's wrong. But if another adult figure comes in and tells us the same thing, of course we're going to listen because we see them as an authority figure, somebody different. So it's hilarious how that works. And I've seen it firsthand, both even in myself. I am guilty of it too.
Right.
Everybody is. Yeah. And I've seen it happen to other people, and it's terrible, but it's something I think I wish all of us would work on that in ourselves to be able to see more clearly that, the people right in our own departments or the departments nearby have just as much to share as the people you're going to see at like FDIC or something, Yeah.
It's just being open-minded, open the mind and close the mouth and open the ears kind of thing. And just kind of pay attention and take some nuggets from it, even if it's stuff that you've heard 20 times. I mean, there's going to be something a little bit new in there. I mean, just take it and grab the nuggets. And
I can't tell you how many, and granted, I do a lot of online classes right now because that's what's available to me at the moment, but I can't tell you how many classes I've taken from the same instructors in person or online. And every time I go back, you see something different. You learn something different, or you've learned enough in your fire career to be able to understand the whole basis better, that you are picking up on everything else and you're actually seeing.
It helps you take it like 3 or 4 times, and it helps you re-instruct it to somebody else or re-teach it to somebody else.
Yes, I can't tell you how many times I've taken a basic fire behavior class. So many times. And this was from the very beginning, before I even started, when I was first getting into everything. And it wasn't until one of the last times I went through an actual behavior class. And this was probably about 3-ish years ago. But I finally understood, and I saw a flashover, and I understood exactly what it was. But it took me that many times going through it before I could actually process in my brain exactly what I'm seeing, exactly what I need to see, what was happening, because people can tell you it all day long, but until your brain clicks, it's not going to stay, or you're going to like, oh yeah, this is what happens, but you don't actually know what that means until it finally hits in. So I want to first off on this whole subject say that in-house trainings are still gold. They still need to happen.
Yep.
There's no excuse to not have your own in-house trainings. They need to happen because that's how you sharpen the skills, especially your very basics that you need to do, right? All of your basics should be able to be done in-house in some fashion or another. There's plenty of places to look up how to do that. We've done a couple episodes on this ourselves, whatnot. But anyways, those are really good. But going to outside trainings is a whole nother level on so many different things, on so many different ways. Just some of the new ideas that you're able to learn from that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and again, like I was saying, so like at CETA, I'd never gone there because like that whole in-house training kind of thing. And I'd gone and I was like, this is great. I'm like, holy cow, there's all kinds of great classes. And, and it's like, okay, I'm going to come back again. And so coming back again, the director on the continuing education side of that, she is super awesome. She's like the best person. She's like a great lady. Love her to death. She works her butt off putting the whole thing together. So going there and so I also help teach firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 out there at the community college. It's not credited classes, so it's open up to like outside counties and volunteers within the county to come and get their Fire 1, Fire 2. So main instructor that I helped with that, he was also at our fire school, CETA. And so kind of poked at me, hey, why don't you come help me with the Fire 1 kind of thing? I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of so I started helping, and I kind of, he had the whole schedule. I was like, I'll show up whenever I can. And so, I showed up quite a few times the first time around. Very hesitant as far as standing up in front of people and talking. And I did a couple of those, but I was more on the hands-on stuff. I like doing the hands-on.
Yeah.
So got more and more doing the hands-on, and he kept pushing me to stand up in front of class and, talking in front of people, which, you just got to do it. It's nerve-wracking, and it makes you super nervous, and I don't like doing it, but the more you do it, the lot easier it becomes, for sure. And you realize, okay, I don't care what the students, think of me or laugh at me or whatever, think about, how I'm talking or anything. You got to put that all behind you and just go with teaching them what you know and teaching them what you're supposed to be teaching. So, so I've been doing that, and that, I tell you, it's awesome because, they're learning and they ask questions, but you also learn from the students that are green and may not know anything, or you may have some students that have been on their department for maybe 3 to 5 years, but haven't done, that level of fire training yet. And they
that's
have
where
questions.
I was.
So
that's exactly where I was.
And they're like, hey, we do this. And you'd be like, whoa, what does that mean? Like, you're like, dumbfounded, like, never heard of that before. Or not even related to fire. They may have a blue collar job in construction or something like that. And they may say, well, hey, Dave, a building such and such is built this way or something. And then something that I don't know, I'm a construction inspector. So as for my real job. So, there's stuff that I see that I know, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. So, and that's all fine. So having somebody point stuff out like that it's great to learn as well from the students. So, yeah, so then that's, where I am today. So, but as far as the outside world training, it's actually been probably the past couple years now, I kind of mention it every once in a while to people as like, get out of your bubble, get out of your small department small fire department training bubble, get outside of your county, get outside of your state, go to trainings if you can. I understand that a lot of the volunteer fire departments just don't have the budget, or their city may not pay for people to go to trainings and cover all those costs. Maybe they cover some of it. I'm fortunate enough where my city actually covers all the costs, which is awesome, and they don't bat an eye for us to go to any trainings at all. So, and again, like I was saying, so Ames Fire, the Winter Fire School, is the one that I had always gone to, and then I went to CETA here locally, and I figured, well, I'm gonna venture out just a little bit, see what some other schools. So I went over to Sioux City, Iowa, to that fire school. And I got there, I'm like, oh, great. This is going to be one of those rinky-dink kind of things, and it was actually great. It was so awesome. The vendors were all out, set up in the hallway, and they had another room for vendors, but the classes were great. I was impressed by the way it was set up. Went in there with a bad impression or what I, thought it was going to be like, and it was totally the opposite. So,
yeah. So I got
yeah.
Oh,
sure.
I was going to say, so was CETA the first outdoor or outside of your house conference you went to, or did you go to another one first?
No, there's the Winter Fire School that we'd always go. There's always quite a few of us on our department that we used to go. Man, we had 12 people go at one time, which was so awesome. It was awesome because we were all at the same hotel. We went out to supper together. It was seriously, it was great. Man, it was just the whole camaraderie kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was awesome. So
yeah, what got you to go to your first conference? Like what was the reason you went? And then if you can remember, why did you go back after that?
I think it was the fire chief that was fire chief when I first got on. again, he's the same age as me. So he always had these stories of going out to fire school. And then our current fire chief, he's like a year younger than me. So after the fire chief that was chief when I got on retired, then our current chief took over. And they both had been out there back when the fire school used to operate a different way. And they used to have this thing called the pits out there. And that got shut down before my time of going out there. But it was pretty much like, you survive that, you're a firefighter kind of thing. I mean, it was kind of this whole badass thing, I guess. I mean, I'd never been out there, so. But my first fire chief, he's like, yeah, you gotta go to Ames, and he kind of pushed us to go out there. And there's all kinds of great classes then. He went out and did the ice rescue class with him and a couple other people from our department. And they come back and they're like, oh, this is great. And they're teaching it to us. And we're like, oh, heck. Then another 5 of us went out, took it, and we come back and like, oh, this is a great class. And then like another 5 of us went out and they took, and they're kind of like, oh, this is a great class.
So it was kind of in the culture already to have you guys go out and learn from the chief. He was pushing it. But then as you came back in numbers, it just started growing and growing, and more people started going to outside trainings.
Right. So, it got really good there for a while where a lot of people went out, and it's really died off probably the past 5 years. It's been pretty, small numbers of people going out. Right now, our department is kind of at that stage where it's half seasoned people and half 5 years or less people. So it's kind of, we got those newer ones that we're trying to stress to them, like, get out to the trainings. So this last weekend, I had, I think 4 of them that went, and one of them I think had to bail out because he had other things going. So at least I had 3 newer guys going, which was great. I mean, they got out and got exposed to it. So the thing, I don't know if they're, making friends or networking with other people out there at those schools, which is a huge thing that I try to do. Even if somebody I don't know, I try to at least start a conversation with somebody I don't know at all the schools. So, and that's why I like to go with them, or at least catch up with them at the fire schools and walk around and make sure they meet people that I know, so I can introduce them. Like, hey, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, this is, this guy, maybe it's a vendor. Okay, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. Or maybe it's another instructor. It's like, okay, you need to take this guy's class, next year or the following year. At some point, you need to take his class, just kind of point them out to people that they need to go to, vendors they need to see, that kind of stuff, kind of steer them in the right direction. So.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was going to say, is to, you need to make sure before you just send a bunch of young people, like, go to conferences, they're going to stay with their own group because that's what's comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine.
Well, yeah, but you also want to have someone go with them who likes to network and take them into uncomfortable situations to see other people, because they're not getting the whole flavors of the fire department, of the brotherhood out there.
Exactly. So that's, and so that gets to, so another fire school. So I'd gone to Sioux City, and then, I'd always kept going to Ames with the Winter Fire School. Well, then there's a couple of neighboring departments where the chief and maybe a couple other guys went to, hey, we're going to go down to Missouri Fire School. I'm like thinking, well, that's in Missouri. I'm like, that's not here. And they come back and like, oh, this is like the greatest. This is a great school. Had way much better stuff than, Ames had this year. And they had, so-and-so was an instructor, and another so-and-so, big name instructors. I'm like, oh man, after, hearing this, I'm like, man, I really like to go to that and meet that guy, So last year, or 2018, I think I went, or 19, I can't remember. I've been down there twice. So the first time I went, I was like, holy cow. I was like, this is a great school. I mean, it was great training. And I was just like, I was blown away. So what happened the first time I went, maybe the second time I went down. I can't remember. Anyways, we got down there to Columbus, Missouri, and got down there on campus on Friday night. We went out in town, had supper, come back Saturday morning. You have classes all day long. That night we stayed at the hotel where all the vendors were at and everything. So we went back out in the town, ate real quick, come back. We went to the restaurant / bar there in the hotel just to hang around, maybe have a drink or two, just talk with a buddy of mine that had gone. Next thing we know, we were sitting down on the lower level at the table, and we said, hey, let's go up closer to the bar and sit on these higher tables. And next thing you know, we have like big name instructors coming and walking by, and one of them, the instructors that was teaching the art of reading smoke, come up. He sat at our table with us. We talked with him for probably almost an hour. Next thing you know, there's other big name instructors coming up to him, and then they're also talking to us at the same time. And I was like, holy cow. I'm like, this. And they're like, at first you're like, oh my gosh, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so.
But I'm going to ask, was it Jose or Backer that was teaching the art of reading smoke?
That was Jose. It was Phil Jose. But then Sean Gray from Cobb County, Jason Holwoman from down in Missouri. There's a couple other that were there too. I was like, holy cow, like big names here, but after a while, you realize, okay, they're just regular people that they put their pants on the same as me, and they're laid back, super down to earth people. It was great because not everything was exactly all about fire. I mean, got in the family stuff a little bit, and I think maybe sports stuff, and just so it wasn't all about fire, which was great too. So, but after that, I was like, holy cow. Then the other one was, I think right after that, in April, I went to FDIC in 2018 for my first time. And let me tell you, that just blew my mind away. I was like, holy cow. I took, lecture classes that year, and, spent the days walking around looking at the vendors and stuff. And I was just like, wow. And just, I had taken, the other outside training was up in Dubuque, Iowa. It's the Tri-State Conference. And that's a great one because on Friday, I think it's Friday and Saturday, they have two different courses. So they have a fire side and they have an EMS side. But you can take all day Friday as fire and all day Saturday as fire, or you can take all day Friday and all day Saturday as EMS, or you can do Friday fire, Saturday EMS, or vice versa, whichever you want to do, which is awesome. So I went up to that one, and that's where I had Mike Gagliano as in a class. I had Dan Madrukowski from FSRI, Pete Van Dorp from Chicago Fire. There's probably some other names in there too. Just these guys that have been around for a while. I was like, Dave Dodson up there, Lottery and Smoke. The first time I took that class, that blew me away. And then so you go to class and like, ask some, be the guy to ask the dumb question kind of thing, which I don't mind.
Yeah. But then somebody needs to be that person. I'm usually that person too. Yeah, so
I don't mind. So, which was fun. So then what's funny, both the two times I'd gone was, they always, take a break, go to lunch, and I go off and sit down, and I usually try to sit with somebody I know, or else I'll just go off and start a new table and thing. So the first time Dave Dodson comes, sits right next to me eating. I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, can I sit here? I'm like, sure. So Chris, like, small talk, kind of chit chat while we're eating. And I was like, holy crap, The second time that I'd gone up there, Pete Van Dorp, same thing happened. I was eating. He comes, I think there's somebody else sitting with us. He comes, sits at the table with us, just starts, BSing away, just starts talking up, about different stuff and asking questions. And we were asking him questions. And I was like, holy cow.
That's what I love about these conferences, especially the smaller ones, because that just happens. You know, one of my favorite conferences that I go to, the Les Lucret conference, it's like usually 150 people max. That's it. And so you have 150 people plus your instructors, and we usually have about between 4 and 10 instructors there every year. And they just come and eat with you too. And everyone, there's, you know, they hang out all weekend. You get to see them at the local bars right there, you know, especially the hotel bars if you're staying there, you know, and it's just so nice because you get more time with them than what you would at some of these bigger conferences. Now, I have not been to FDIC or anything like that. And I'd love to someday. I'd love to.
It will
someday I will get there.
Mind.
But
it'll blow your mind.
I can definitely see how it's a different type of experience, though, because you definitely get more one-on-ones with the instructors when you go to these smaller micro conferences, but you get the bigger effects of the brotherhood and fire service when you get to the big ones.
Yeah, the like FDIC, it's so again, you know, I met all these other instructors at these smaller conferences and stuff, and they get to FDIC and you see them again, and you know, they may not even remember your name or anything, but when you go and say, "Hey, Mike Gagliano," he's like, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" You know, or you have your, you know, credential tag around, you know, around your neck with your name. So they say, "Hey, how you doing, Dave?" You know, they're reading your name tag, but you know, they probably don't remember because they run into so many people, but they make you feel like they've known you for several years. You know, they don't make you feel like, you know, a dirt bag or something, but it was great. So, I mean, Mike Gagliano, Paul Combs, you know, so 2019 when I went, I took my youngest boy and had walking down the hallway and stopped and we talked with Bobby Halton. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're talking to the guy in charge of the whole thing. So it was great. You know, it was a 5-minute conversation, but it was still, you know, he made you feel like I don't know, propped you up to his level or came down to your level or just made you feel human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. So I definitely recommend FDIC to anybody. And especially if you don't want to take, you know, the hot classes or the lecture because that's pricey stuff. And again, on the volunteer world, you may not have that budget or your city may not pay for cover that stuff. But at least like the vendor stuff, that's it was $80 this year. So 3 days, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then on top of that, you know, you have your hotel, obviously, and then mileage and gas and supper and stuff like that. And what's nice, the other thing nice at FDIC is at the end of the day, afterwards, everybody always has plans on going somewhere because everybody wants to get together as a, you know, hey, where are you going? Oh, we're going to go to this steakhouse. Okay, I'll catch you there. Next thing you know, there's like, you know, 80 firefighters at this steakhouse and, you know, you probably know 10 of them or something. So it's awesome like that. So,
yeah. So I want to touch on a couple things before we get off of the out of house trainings topic. So first of all, oh, it happens all the time. Don't worry. I planned for it. So I was just kind of want to touch on, you know, some of my favorite things to like what you get at outside training conferences or like what people don't think about. So like I know when I first started going to outside conferences or classes or trainings, I was trying to figure out why should I go to these? Because I'm a lowly firefighter. I can't actually change anything at my department. And I just want to touch on all the benefits to going to these for every rank of firefighter. Right. And for me, the first one was to get better at my skills. First of all, if you're doing any hands-on classes, and if you do any lectures, I mean, just the knowledge in general you're going to be getting from these classes, especially if you, I mean, pick a subject you love in the first place or are interested in. Otherwise, you may not have a great time, being honest. Right. You know, so pick something you're going to want to learn about because you're going to be so invested in that. I learned so much about fire behavior and so much about one of the first big outside trainings I did was search and rescue under live fire. And that was a learning curve, but it was so much fun. But I got so good really quickly from it in my own personal skills. I didn't have a lot I could take back to teach the rest of the department, but I got better myself for it.
Right.
But when you're starting to look towards, you know, the chief officers, well, they don't necessarily need or want any more fine tuning of these other skills if they've already been doing it for a while, or if they're not going to be doing a lot of that in the future. So I know at least the ones I've been to, there's a lot of leadership classes out there, and it's not just for the chief officers. This can be even for just the lower level firefighters too.
Right.
Is there anything that you can kind of think of on those lines of?
Yeah. And thinking back on like all the outside classes and stuff that I've gone to, I was very hesitant initially doing any hands-on stuff because I was always afraid of I'm going to mess up and I'm going to look like an idiot. So I was always very hesitant on doing that. And it's probably not until probably good 5 to 8 years ago that I was like, oh, okay, you can do hands-on because the training ground is the place to mess up, and you can do it a second time or a third time or a fourth time if you need to figure out, make sure you're getting it right.
Really quick before you go on to your second point, just because on that one, I have seen firsthand, I don't know how many times, most instructors, even if they're the top level ones, whatever, they are used to seeing all levels of people, and they will bring it down to your level. So even if you think you're bringing the class backwards or whatever, you're not. They know how to deal with it. They know how to adapt it for you and for everybody else. So don't be afraid to go in there, even if you don't think you know anything and you're afraid to screw up. Anyways, go on to your other one you were thinking of.
And that's so, and like on the instructor side, when I'm teaching my Fire 1 or Fire 2, there's different things that I'll go show them. I'll show them, okay, this will happen if you do it the wrong way. And sometimes I'll try to make it where I mess up on purpose to show them like, hey, I'm just a human just like you guys. So, and I'm gonna mess up, and I'll reinstate, hey, this is the fire. This is training. Mess up here all you want, as long as somebody's not getting hurt, obviously, but mess up here. And if you need to do it 3 or 4 times till you're comfortable doing it, then we got all night. I mean, it's however long you want to be here and however good you want to get at it. So, yeah, I caught myself, and it was weird because I caught myself. I was like, oh, you're not doing the hands-on training because you're afraid that you're going to, mess up in front of people, and people are going to, judge you for it. Yeah. So I got past that. But the recent trainings that I've been to is Rogue Training Consulting, which are 2 brothers have set this up. They're in the central state of Iowa over by Des Moines on a career department. And the initial training I went to, they had down south eastern Iowa, small, out in the rural, very rural fire department, small town. I mean, very small town, probably like 700 people. And had an abandoned house that we could do the training in. And so I went to that and took my youngest son, and oh my God, I was just blown away because we did ladders, we did vertical ventilation, we did search and VES, we did hose handling stuff inside the house, and we did forcible entry. We ran K-12 saw cutting up garage door. And I learned so much that day. It was a Saturday, Sunday. I was blown away. I was like, my guys on my department need this training. There was just so many things that made you more efficient at doing things. I was like, oh my gosh. So a couple of months later, they had another one, and it was about 45 minutes away from here. So it's kind of more northeast of where I'm at. And it's from these guys' hometown. And it was an old brick building schoolhouse. And we did all the same stuff. And again, it was great, different kind of structure, but all the same stuff. And I learned a few more nuggets that was like, and also practice on the same stuff that we had learned the first time. And I was like, this is just so awesome. We did like hose loads too. So like if one department ran a Minuteman, or another department did a flat load, or another department did a triple load or whatever, we put all those loads on a truck and we pulled them. And then guys are like, well, we run a flat load. So we put it on there and we pull it and see how efficient it was and whether we liked it or not. So that's where they showed us the upside down Minuteman. Basically it's a flat load, but you lay it, you put it in there a certain way where I can pull it out and flop it on my shoulder, kind of dive into it and spin around so it's on my shoulder like a Minuteman, and then reach around, grab a loop and go. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. I was like, I don't have this big nest of hose next to the fire truck. I got all the hose at the house. I was just like amazed. So my goal was to see if I could get our hose, our crosslays and stuff changed on our apparatus on our 2 main trucks. So it was probably May or June of this year. Rogue Training Consulting had a big training event happening in Knoxville, Iowa at the old VA center. And it had a whole bunch of big buildings, and there's going to be 100 students there, which I was like, holy cow, it's all free Saturday, Sunday. All day Saturday was ladders, search, and forcible entry. And there might've been one thing. I think there's 4 stations each day. So I did that the first day. So throwing ladders, doing search, doing forcible entry. And the nice thing, there's so many doors. If you messed up on a door and didn't like the way you do it, you just go to the next door. There are so many doors that you could just do whatever. Oh, the other one was vertical ventilation. That was cutting roofs. So out there's a tunnel that had like a wood roof on it that sticked up above the ground. So far, however much roof you wanted to cut, you cut as many times as you want. Seriously, cut as many times as you wanted to. Then the next day was hose handling for us. And oh my gosh, it was more, it was, moving 1 3/4 hose lines and stuff, but then also getting into your 2.5s. They had brought in 2 1/4 and 2-inch to play around with. And we did some standpipe operations, which I'd never done before. So that was a new thing that day, learning. But we were doing all the hose handling stuff on the 2nd floor, and it's concrete floor, concrete brick building. So it's a lot of standing water, like 3 to 4 inches. So you're sloshing through all this water, and you're down on your knees, and you got water coming up in your pants and then down in your boots, kind of thing. So that day kicked my butt for real. And there's a lot of people that were there on Saturday that did not show up on Sunday. And then there's people that showed up on Sunday that ended up leaving earlier. And I think a lot of people came up with excuses why they want to leave, just because it kicked their butt. And I was fine with it kicking my butt and having it show that it kicked my butt. Boy, I was not going to leave. I was not going to leave because it was kicking my butt. Yeah. I want to stay there and still get the nuggets. Even if I was listening to it and watching it happen, I wasn't going to leave just because it was kicking my butt and I couldn't, my knees are killing me. My back is killing me. At least I could sit here and watch somebody else. I could watch my son do it, and I could still learn from watching it. So that was a thing for me. I was definitely not going to leave.
There are definitely times we have to know our limits with trainings too.
Yeah.
There was a training I did with Dave Mellon over at Valor Fire Training. He was up in Nebraska for one. It was an all-day thing, and we worked hard that day. We worked really hard that day.
Nice.
And we got to the last evolution. And I didn't know it was the last one. I thought we had like 2 more. So I'm like, I'm going to sit this one out to kind of like regain everything just to make sure I don't whatever. Right. But like, I want to do one more evolution. So I want it to be the last one. I just need a break. Well, then I found out they were doing just that last one. That was it. I'm like, well, shoot, now I have to like buck up and do it, because like, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it. But it's one of those things where I was the only one who was going to be sitting out, and it did feel awkward to do it. But I knew I had to, but I wasn't going to leave.
Right.
I wanted to see it all happen. I wanted to see what everyone was doing. So a little bit of a same kind of correlation to that.
Right.
So on these out of house trainings, where are some places? I'll go ahead and list off some of the places that I like to look for them, or some of the kind of different levels of out of house trainings people can go find. If you know of any others, feel free to speak up or any other way to find them. So first of all, mutual aid associations tend to sometimes either do just their own trainings or have information there for others. Of course, there's FDIC and Firehouse Expo, and things like that. So the bigger name ones. Then you come down to some of your micro conferences, and these can be they're scattered throughout the country, just kind of everywhere. I've mentioned the Les Lukert one. I'm assuming your CETA one was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Kind of a micro conference.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're everywhere. And I know, and I'm assuming it's probably the same for you too, David, but for us, we bring in a lot of the same instructors that go to FDIC and Firehouse and all these other big name conferences, not all at the same time. Right, we don't have the budget for that, but you bring them in every other year, something like that. You'll have a couple that come in that are bigger names. And then, did I mention Fools conferences yet?
No.
Okay. So, this is actually kind of new to me because I don't know if there's a Fools kind of in my area. I think the closest one may be Kansas City. Okay. So, but I know Fools, a lot of different Fools groups, organizations have conferences that they put on. Yeah. Otherwise, pretty much the only way I see anything is if I'm on like Facebook groups like Engine Company Resurrection or something. But is there any other better way, or how do you find out about conferences?
Usually it just happens by like,
word of mouth,
social media kind of usually. Yeah. Well, like the mutual aid one. So we have our county fire association where it rotates through the different departments every month. Once a month, we have a meeting there. So whoever hosts, so say if I host that meeting this month, it's up to me to come up with a training of some sort that maybe it lasts for an hour and a half. You don't want it to be super long, but you provide a meal before. So when it gets there, you'll have the meeting. You may eat the same time you're having, let people eat the same time you're having the meeting. And then right after that, then you do the training. Mm-hmm. That one, my goal on that is since that our county agency has a budget, I want to try to see about maybe every other month or maybe every 6 months, get some recognized instructor of some sort from out of our area to come in and do a training at whoever the host department is my goal.
Yeah.
Don't know if, that's a goal. Don't know if it'll happen or not, but
it's tough. You got to have a budget for it too.
Yeah. Yeah. The other one is we try to do mutual aid wise with our mutual aid departments. We try to get together a lot more now on doing trainings together. Our department to the north of us, we've done some grass fire wildland training stuff together. We did some extrication trainings together. We have another extrication training coming up that they're actually going to come down to. We did big water training, like rural water supply training with several mutual aid departments back in April or May, I believe that was. And that was a 1-day thing that was really good. So, the Fools one, we have the Des Moines area Metro Fools, or the Dam Fools as it's called. So that is the president of that is also one of the owners of the Rogue Training Consulting. So they try to make sure training happens, which is awesome.
That's good.
So I love it. You can tell those guys that have that passion, training, and want to do stuff all the time. And that's kind of what I look for too. And then just the social media side of it. I mean, recently with, on Facebook, Instagram, other things like that, just people talking about stuff that's happening. I mean, the Lake of the Ozarks one, I knew about that a couple of years ago, but just haven't been able to get down there to it. Just different things going on.
I'm the same way. That's one that's definitely on my list.
Yes, that is the next one. That's one on my list I want to get to as well. And
maybe we'll both get to it this next coming year.
Yeah. And I think that one popped into my ear from having gone down to Missouri Fire School. I think there are guys talking about that one. So, and then there's like Fire on the Water down in Florida. And I know there's some East Coast ones happening, and there's always something happening now, like out in Denver.
There's definitely the bigger, or those ones like kind of all over. And I know we have a few even small day ones in Nebraska. And like one that I loved going to, actually, if anyone's in Kansas, especially on the volunteer side and in Kansas, the Kansas State Firefighter Association actually has free 2-day little fire schools around Kansas throughout the year. And I used to go to those a lot because they're free for anyone to attend.
Right.
And they don't have a big class offering necessarily, but they're really good if you want to brush up on your skills, or if, especially if you find out, like, because they put out the class list usually a couple weeks to like a month ahead of what that fire school is and where they're doing it, but they'll have the class list out there. So like, it's a good place. If you don't know a lot about extrication, go take an extrication class from there or something, you know, and especially with budgets for fire departments, it's a free thing to do.
Yes, that helps. That definitely helps on the budget wise. If the training's free, okay, now the cost is just my mileage and hotel room, and meals. Maybe I usually don't charge. I don't usually charge the city back for my meals at all. I mean, they're already paying for my training. I figure, well, I can pay what else too. Yeah, you know, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So, also outside, you know, there's all kinds of online training too. It's so have to ridiculous. Vet it. Yeah,
you have to really vet it to find the good stuff, though.
Yes, I mean, so like there's FSRI. Mm-hmm. They have like they have a whole bunch on there that are 45 minutes long. You basically sit through theirs, watch a video, take a little quiz. It pumps out a little certificate that you can take down to your fire department and have them mark it up as training. You know.
Yeah, you know, I loved their basement fires one. I learned so much. I was schooling Chris on a lot of information. He's like, I've never learned this stuff before. And I'm like, hey, you should go take these classes online. Well, now, some online classes are pretty dry. Yes. So you have to be prepared for different ones. Yeah. But yeah.
And that's a tool for people. Like, so in the state of Iowa here, we have to have 24 hours minimum training is what you're supposed to have. Mm-hmm. And fire departments are supposed to document that. So in case, you know, somebody decides to come and audit you and verify that you guys are actually doing 24 hours, I guess, but which is all fine. I get it. And even when that came into Iowa code back whenever that was several years ago, there's a whole lot of uproar on that because, oh my gosh, 24 hours, you know, some people ain't going to be able to get 24 hours. Like,
they should be able to.
That's 2 hours. That's 2 hours a month. Or you go into a fire. If I go to a fire school, if I attend 2 days, I can rack up 12 hours right there.
Yeah.
You know, or 16 hours, whatever. So
Nebraska doesn't have anything like that yet. They have the tax credit to it.
Oh, yeah.
So you can rack up points from going to trainings for that, but they don't have any actual credits you have to have.
Then the other trainings on you had the U.S. Fire Academy trainings, which those again dry stuff, but I mean it's stuff that you know you take it. So like NIM stuff, you know, of course Fire One you have to have 100 and 700. Okay, what else is out there? Well, there's a 300 and a 400 being taught in a county south of us, and I went to those. Oh my gosh, I loved them. So it was like the first day I was like, okay, this is kind of dry, but then it got to more in the instructor was talking about different events that took place and how the whole class actually, you know, related to the events, and how one was talking about Katrina and how, you know, ICS 300, 400, you know, related to that. We had a big tornado that came through and went through the town of Parkersburg and pretty much, you know, took a good swath of that town, went bye-bye. And he related, you know, 300, 400 to that as well. And it was an eye-opener on how the whole incident command system worked and how it all flowed and everything. No, and how it all flowed. It worked out. I mean, it was great. So then I was like going through and I see ICS 200, which is like all the documents, like the paperwork to fill out, like, you know, your incident action plan and all that kind of stuff. And my gosh, that one kind of kicked my butt a little bit, but it was good. I went through it, got through it.
I have that one coming up pretty soon. So
yes. The other is, and I always try to bring it up to people as another avenue, is the wildland fire side. So there's for us to do the wildland stuff, you can take the L180, S190, S130, and then that's all online. You basically take quiz, tests, print out a certificate. And then for us, we go to a 2-hour class, sit through that. After that, they teach you how to run a drip torch, how to do a few other, how to run hand tools a little bit. And then when you're done with that, if you want to take the pack test, you can. So that's the 3-mile walk with a 45-pound pack in 45 minutes. And then when you're done with that, you basically fill out the federal paperwork and get your red card to, basically get signed up to go out west. And so I had a couple kids do that, and one kid did that and surprised me that he did it because he didn't tell me about it. And the next thing I knew, he's like, "Hey, I'm going out west. They called me." I'm like, "I leave in 2 days." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Awesome, dude." I was so jealous. I really was. I was like, "That's awesome." So he went out west for 2 weeks, and he took pictures and stuff, and sent some pictures back while he was out there. And he came back and told us all about it. And I was like, "Wow!" I was like, "Dude, I'm so jealous that you went out there." So that's my goal this next year, because I've been kicking that can down the road for a while. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal this next year, is to do that pack testing, get signed up for that. And we'll see how that goes with work. So
yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend all our time on this, but I want to move on to the second kind of thing we're going to talk about tonight, the networking. Yes. And we actually started to get into that, because it goes very much hand in hand with outside trainings. Yeah. Because with the outside trainings, you don't just go and get your knowledge for your skills and for the, everything that's happening. That's not all of why you go to outside trainings. That's half of it. The other half, and the way to do it correctly, is to go and network with people.
Yep. On that, going to all the schools and stuff, you're meeting people, probably meeting same firefighters that I mutual aid with, or maybe the next department past that I run into at other things, and maybe a little bit networking, but it's not somebody new. It's somebody I've known, but it's not somebody new that I've never met before that I'm networking with. So the first time I think that I really started networking with people was going to our Iowa Society of Fire Service Instructors conference, which was always in like September or November, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So I went to that, and again, there's always two or three instructors I knew, and then they would introduce me to another instructor. Like, oh, so then you okay, and then you start talking to that guy or talking to another guy, and you may not talk to them all the time, but you're always you're looking forward to that time when that conference is coming up to get to see that person again, which is always the huge thing for me, is like, oh, dude, this conference is coming up, so I'll get to meet so-and-so, I'll get to meet Joe, and I'll get to meet Bill, and I'll get to meet, Dan or somebody, so, and then when the conferences don't happen, you're like, oh man, that kind of sucks. And you're hoping you get to see him at something else. So that was kind of a stepping stone. And then, so one of the instructors that I usually went to that with, he's like, hey, do you want to join the International Society of Fire Service Instructors? I'm like, what's that? He's like, well, that's like the international version of the Iowa Society of Fire Service Instructors. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sure. So there's a whole history behind all that too. So the Iowa Society of Fire Service Instructors was the first one, but they weren't registered as the first one. Wisconsin came in, started right after Iowa. So since Iowa didn't register as the first one, Wisconsin registered first. So they got number one as their number. So then Iowa's number two. So that's how that is. But basically the International Society of Fire Service Instructors started because of the Iowa one had started. So the international one, the first time I went to it, or first time, I'm like, wow, this is great. I mean, there's just guys from all across the country. Even there's a couple guys from Canada. There's a guy from Denmark the first time. I think there's a guy from Brazil the first time. Just meeting these guys, I'm like, holy cow, you flew all the way here for this country. I'm like, oh gosh. But it was good. It was another networking thing. And I was just blown away. So then I went to the second conference, and they had a conference over in Tinley Park over by Chicago. And that one really opened my eyes into the whole more networking stuff. The chief over there at the time, Forrest Reeder, super awesome guy. He's down to earth. I mean, just talk to you like a normal person, but also introduce you to other people and say, hey, go talk to this other instructor over here, who's another big name, but just a normal guy. Or you run into other guys that you saw at the last conference too. And just like, it was so awesome. Just meeting, there's a guy, instructor, fire chief from out in Montana that I met, now friends with Facebook and stuff. It just blows your mind away when you start meeting these people. You kind of become friends, and they're kind of bigwigs. And I'm just like, I'm just a regular Joe here in Eastern Iowa to volunteer, but they're regular guys too. It's just your paths always go different ways, and they're on a career fire department and they got the $1 million lottery ticket and they're living the dream, So, but, and the other networking stuff, again, FDI, it's back, comes around back to FDIC too. There's always the International Fire Service Fire Instructor conference there that we always had a luncheon there on Fridays with all those ISFSI instructors and stuff, which was great because there was a whole award ceremonies that went on there too, which was awesome. I'm trying to think of other networking things. Really, I think the smaller conferences are a lot more personal, probably. Mm-hmm. Just, I think if you get, the conference is all great, but if you don't go out to the social hour or for supper and the lunches and stuff like that, and make sure you don't sit with people that you hang around all the time, go sit at a table that you don't know anybody.
That is exactly the way to do it. That is the way I've been doing it. Yeah. And not always on purpose, but usually I go to these things alone and I just sit down at a table because I don't know where else to eat. And then I start talking with people, and that's just the way it goes. And that's how I end up meeting most of the people I meet at conferences. And
one of the things I've learned is, and there's always that, I'm career or I'm volunteer. And to me, it doesn't matter either way, but you I think you get a little bit nose snubbing on some volunteer departments, and, even volunteers, kind of knocking other volunteers a little bit because, I got small town, population 100, and they only have 2 fire trucks and it's 10 guys on the department and they're all farmers. Okay, that's what they're dealt with. I mean,
they don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and if there's a fire, they may be on the field. They may have been out in another town. They may have been at a cattle sale somewhere else or doing who knows what. And maybe there's only 5 of those guys in town or, whatever. So, you get to the fire conference and you see those guys and you're like, he's on small town. And you kind of see guys like, kind of snubbing their nose. I'm like, how are you mocking the guy when he's here at the training? He's here. Happen. He's here at a conference and a training. I could care. So what if he's in blue jeans? He's got the bent up hat, ball cap, and he's got denim coat and he's got a flannel shirt. I don't care. He's here. He's not. Saying that he's better than not being here. So they already knows everything. So that's kind of one of my pet peeves a little bit. But
I definitely understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, the whole training and networking, man, training is huge. I try to stress to everybody, just get out there and again, get outside of your bubble, get outside of your county, get out of your state if you can. I mean, if you can at least get out of your county, like I went out to Sioux City that time and I went out there with a closed mind thinking it was going to be podunk, kind of messed up, not very good. It was great. I mean, it was a good conference. So,
and it's not just getting out of your county. I mean, it is, but once you're at the conference or whatever training you're doing, You need to spend time, even if you're with your own people, you need to spend time with other people in other departments, not in the classroom.
Yes.
That is the important part of going to these outside learning opportunities. I'm going to say, well, I don't actually have the actual quote. I heard it actually this morning on Robbie Owens's Average Jake podcast on his newest episode. I got the episode number 53, if anyone wants to check it out. So this isn't word for word, and I can't remember who said it.
Right.
I should have looked it up before this, and I didn't. But basically, you can't study the universe if you only stay on your planet.
Nice.
It's not going to work. You have to get out there, and you
like
have to, right? I really loved it too. I wish I knew who said it, and I wish I knew the actual words.
Yeah.
That's basically a sum up of what it is. It's a really good one. Also, go listen to that episode because that's a good episode.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, you have to get out of there. Otherwise, you can't say that you study the universe. You can't say that you study the fire service, that you are a member of the fire service if you don't get out there and learn from other people. You know, it's just a huge part of what the brotherhood is that it's sad to say, but most people don't get to see because they don't ever get out. And I know a lot of times, a lot of departments they don't have the culture and they don't have the push from their senior membership to go out to these smaller conferences or to these outside conferences and trainings. So
yeah, it's hard. I think you get a lot of departments where the senior seasoned guys that have been on for a while, like, well, you know, I had to go learn stuff on my own and nobody else showed me how to do this. And why should I show you learn the same way? Well, okay, I got that. But, you know, actually step up and be the leader and actually, you know, hey, you new guy, come here.
Yes.
I mean, so we had a guy come get on the department, and he walked in and he filled that application and he showed up the first one Wednesday night, and he wasn't on yet. He was just there to, you know, he hadn't gotten voted on or anything in his application, but he showed up the Wednesday night and he's like, hey, what can I do? I hand him the broom. I'm like, here, I go help these guys clean this hose. We were like cleaning the hose. Like, here's a brush. I'm gonna help these guys. And I kind of walked off. And it was kind of a test to see what he's gonna do. Is, you know, like, look at me like, what the hell? No, he took it and he went to town and, you know, jumped in right with the guys and started helping clean and come back, shot the breeze there and super guy. I mean, he'll give you shirt off his back. You know, he wants to learn. He's hungry for the training. So, which is great. So,
no, your ceiling should be everybody else's floor that comes after you.
Yeah.
You should want to leave the fire service better than what it is. Yep. And they're going to have their own problems to face. If you're really worried about that, they're going to have their own things they have to work through on their own too.
And one of my things has always been, I want you to be better than me. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when I know you're coming up and you're trying to get better than me, it's going to push me to still try to be better than you.
Yeah.
I want you to be better than me, but you coming up and I can see, oh, hey, we're going to do 50 push-ups. Okay, great. Well, we're at 50 push-ups and you're still going. Well, shit, guess what? I need to make sure I get 60 now, you know, or whatever, something like that, you know? So, which was awesome. So like it was several years ago, we did like a physical fitness training thing one night, and we had like the tire and we were using the sledgehammer, and we were, I think we were pulling hose a certain length. We're having guys walk around the block with their air packs on, and we're doing push-ups with our PPE and air packs on, which was fine. So, which was awesome. So at the time I was like, you know, regularly going to the gym and, you know, able to do a lot of push-ups. So I was like, okay, we're going to do push-ups. And we're like, how many we do? I'm like, however many you can do until you quit, you know? So I'm like, I'm like 30, like 35, like, 36. I'm like, 37. I'm like, dude, I know I can do 40. And I'm like, 37. I'm like, oh, crap. And like, Nick Kid, one of the other firefighters' kids, he was getting ready to go off to Marine Reserves kind of thing. So he'd been working out regular too. So he got all this stuff. Yeah, he's going to town. He's like 35, 36. He got the 40 and he stopped. And like, I was like, damn it. It's like, but after I got done, I was like, dude, like, good job. Like, I'm glad you did more than I did. I was like, I'm gonna have to try to up you next time. So, but it was good because you're not pushing them to, again, that's a whole ego thing. I think in the fire service, people just like, oh, I got to be better than him. Like, no, like if push them to be as good as you and better. Like, with my boys, I want them to be better than I ever was at anything. So,
yeah. I think one last thing I want to touch on networking before we end here, is why do we network? People, I don't know if the younger generation, and I'm kind of like in the middle now, I'm just about 30, so like there are people younger than me coming into the fire service, and I don't know if they understand why we network. And I kind of want to go into some of those topics about why,
Yeah. Why? That's a good
why.
one. I mean, and
first of all, friends, it's fun to have friends.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, true. And I used to not be one to, I was more introverted kind of person. There's no way I'd like stand up front and talk to people and put myself out there at all. I mean, I would never ever be talking like this in the past, for real. But why we network? I mean, is it that we're trying to learn maybe from somebody else that we, again, those, name brand instructors that are out there that have, that are all over social media and out there and have a big name for us. Are we trying to, get to their level, but their level is the same level we're at? It's just, we're not putting ourselves out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely know what you mean.
They're not really at a bigger level. I mean, they're spread across on the same level. They're wearing the same jeans as me, but I'm just sitting here on the couch in my jeans, and they're all over.
Well, I know the biggest reason I network. First of all, I like having people that I can talk to about the things that other people don't understand. Is number one, probably is why I network. Otherwise, honestly, and it is a selfish reason, but I don't think it makes it bad for being selfish. But if I have a question or if I have a problem or whatever, hopefully somebody I've talked to before and become friends with, they might have gone through before or heard of somewhere else that happened or have some actual like good advice for me so I can get the most information to make a solid, sound decision for myself on what to do for something. It's like if someone has a green explosion somewhere, they're like, okay, let's just say like just a scenario like that. If they don't call for help if they don't know how to fight a green explosion, if they don't call somebody like, okay, how do we do this? What are they going to do? They're going to have to do the best with what they have, but it would have been so much better if they would have had someone to be able to call for help for that case, and that's an extreme, but like, it could be something as simple as a career advancement choice, or maybe there's a weird personnel issue happening that you're not used to, or maybe something weird happened at a fire and something went wrong. Maybe not like drastically wrong, but it went wrong. And you need some help trying to figure out maybe what could have been done instead or something for that. And somebody else has gone through that.
Yeah. So that's crazy you bring that up. So we had exactly that thing with 2017 Super Bowl Sunday. We had a fire right at halftime. Super Bowl Sunday. Yeah. Oh, it was crazy. So we get rolling. It's like comes out as a fire on the porch. So my oldest son, he is an explorer on the fire department at the time. So my youngest boy, he was too young to be on. So we're rolling up, and he had to drive past the house to get to the fire station. The address was 911 Franklin Street. So bad address of choice, right?
Goodness.
Right. Yeah. So we get going, and we drive by it, and I see a little bit of white smoke come out the porch. I'm like, oh, this will be an easy one. We're just going to go. We'll get the engine. We'll get the rescue, grab the water can. We'll put it out. Not a big deal. Roll up. I run in the fire station. Well, the fire chief, another firefighter, and explorer are the engine. He's like, we're taking off going, because it's like, 3 houses down the street from the fire station. I mean, it's very close. So I go on Taryn. He's like, wait for other guys. So I'm like, okay, I hop in the rescue. I had 2 captains and another explorer come. We hop in the rescue. We take off. We pull up right behind the engine. As we pull up, I look out and I look at the peak of the house, and it's all thin, white smoke, wispy smoke coming out of the eave. And I'm like, oh crap. And it's a balloon frame house. I'm like, it's already going upstairs. So I told the two captains, like, hey, it's already going upstairs. Like, you got to get that wall, that ceiling ripped open and at least see if it's there. And if not, get upstairs. So one captain, he took a firefighter that was on the engine. They went inside. Me and another captain, we were the backup crew. So they're inside. You hear them tearing the wall apart, spraying water, tearing the ceiling apart, see them move across the inside. And the whole downstairs, a little smoky, hazy. I could see all the way. You could see all the way across it. Well, they yell out as they're going ready to go upstairs, like, "Hey, we need the tick, and we need another pike pole or something like that. Need another tool." So we got them that, and they ran upstairs. I'm like, "Well, okay, we're going to take these tools up to them." So me and my captain, we get upstairs and we go and we give them the tick, we give them the thermal, or get them another tool, and you walk halfway up the steps and you start into some grayer smoke, and up there up high it was like starting to get black, but it wasn't super hot. Well, long story short, what ended up happening is we ended up having a smoke explosion where one firefighter that was up there initially, his low air alarm went off, so he had to get out of the house. He walked down the steps and walked outside because his low air alarm off, and the rest of us stayed in there. Well, the other captain, his low air alarm went off as well. So the three of us all went out. And I was the first one to lead down, going out the steps out of the three of us. And as I'm walking down the steps, and I was probably about 4 or 5 feet away from the doorway, all of a sudden out of my left side peripheral vision, it's a big glow. And then the next thing I feel heat, and then it just like the explosion, and it threw me out the front door onto the porch. So I was kind of thinking on one knee maybe, and it was at night. So I'm looking, and all I see outside is just embers in the sky. I was like, holy crap. And the fire chief's oldest son, he was outside, man, the hose line there kind of feeding it to us. His eyes were like the size of saucers. He's like, holy cow. And at the time, I'm like, crap. I'm like, I got to go back inside and see where my captain's at. I walked back, and he was on his hands and knees at the bottom of the steps because he was just coming down the steps, and it blew him off onto the floor. So I get him, I'm like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm good. And he's like, where's the other captain? And they're like, so we're yelling for him. We hear nothing. We're like, oh my gosh. We yell a couple more times, and he finally speaks up. Well, he was trying to compose himself. He was coming down the steps, and he laid flat against the steps as the whole fireball went up the steps and ignited all that smoke and everything. Jeez. So after that happened, the next day, so I texted the lead instructor that I helped teach with. I texted him, and then I also texted Phil Jose. I think I texted Phil Jose, or it might have been Sean Gray. I texted one of those to figure out, okay, was that a smoke explosion? Was it a backdraft? What was that?
What was it? Yeah.
And yeah. And in my mind, so guys are like, oh, it's a backdraft. Oh, it's flashover. Oh, I'm like, well, flashover is
not a flashover. We know
like,
that.
Flashover is everything catches on fire. And they thought it was flashover because there was some paper on the table that had caught on fire. Well, it caught on fire as the fireball rolled through.
Yeah.
So I, had to describe it on the text back and forth a while. And they're like, man, everything you're saying sounds like a smoke explosion. So I did more, YouTube research, and I had to read up on the whole thing because guys were like still confused on. I'm like, that was a smoke explosion. I go, because it wasn't hot. It was a cooler heat, and it exploded because we had knee walls there, and that's where the whole fire and everything was in. It got into the knee walls, and it just worked its way to a spot where it opened up and it blew. So that was a good networking thing because I think I touched with Phil, or I touched with Sean on that one.
Oh, definitely.
And then the other time, recently. So just recently, so I'd seen a YouTube video or something of Mo Davis talking about something, and this was like last year, 2 years ago. I'm like, okay, good, great. No clue, not paying attention that, okay, it's Mo Davis. Well, then a couple other guys that I know, like, oh, I went to this conference and Mo Davis was there, and super great training, blah blah blah. Well, then at FDIC, National Fire Radio, Jeremy had Mo on there talking, and I was like, holy crap. And then I also looked him up on some other YouTube thing that he'd done recently. I think it was Lake of the Ozarks maybe that he was talking. I looked at that and watched that, and I was like blown away. So Mo had posted something on Facebook recently about reed hoods. So I asked him about that, and he messaged me back, like the next morning. I was like, oh crap, Mo messaged me back. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was like, we actually had a good little conversation back and forth. So, I mean, it's not a huge networking thing. It's not like we're best buds and we're hanging out drinking time, but it was just that, I wasn't afraid to just message him and, see if I got something. It'd be like, your most, admired movie star, like, oh, I can't, message them because I'm just, little me. Well, whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
Strike up the conversation. So it was great. So, I had this little text thing going back with Mo Davis a little bit. So that was pretty cool. But
I know. And one thing, even though networking can be inherently selfish, the one thing that comes along with networking is that when you start the networking process with other people, you have to be prepared to know that you're going to be on the other end of that and be okay with that and be willing to be that other person with information for other people.
Right. And
that is the hand in hand thing. So yes, it's selfish, but you are also then you're setting up to give away a lot of your time on the same end for other people too.
So like, as much as, like I like kind of like get in awe of like the, national recognized instructors that are traveling all over the place, like, starstruck kind of thing, even though regular guys, I get that. It turns around and it happens to you as well. Once you, like for me, I've been teaching, firefighter 1 guys on surrounding departments. And then what happens is I get them like all of a sudden start messaging me on stuff. And it's like, why are you bothering? I'm like, why are you asking me?
You've made it.
Like, but in there, I can see like, oh, he taught me, so I should ask him.
Exactly. Like, you are the subject matter expert in their minds at the moment.
Right.
And that's great.
But I don't think of that. I don't think of that, I forget to think that, hey, that's the thing that you got to be cognizant of too, as an instructor, and you're out there teaching stuff that, you got to remember that, okay, you're teaching this and it, otherwise don't be teaching. If you don't know it, don't be teaching crap you don't know. But if you know it and you're teaching it, you got to remember like, okay, those that you've taught are going to maybe have a question and come back and reach for you someday to touch up, or maybe they understand it. And you definitely have to make yourself available to them. I mean, you can't you can't close that door, because you're closing the door on their path in a way. You know what I mean?
I'm actually going to be getting into that on another episode with one of the first instructors that actually made a huge impact on me. So we're gonna get into that in a future episode. So I won't get into it too much here. But oh shoot, I had something else. What was it? Oh no, it was right there. It was right there.
Your first instructor.
No, something before that, but I can't remember what it was. Oh yes, I know now.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about, because, and once you think about it, you're going to it's going to screw you up. But everybody at some point was a novice. They didn't know anything.
Exactly.
So you look at all the people that you look up to, and I look up to, and everyone else. Yeah. They're the top of the names right now or whatever. Yeah. They were literally back when they didn't know anything about fire behavior. Yeah. They didn't know anything.
Yes.
And you got to remember that they were once there too, and they had to get there some way, and you can too.
Right. And and kind of on that, really, so the lead instructor that I helped teach Fire 1 stuff, he was my instructor back when I started. So he's 72 years old now, and that was 20 years ago. So, which just blows my mind, because it doesn't seem like he's 72 really. But with all the fire dynamics and all the whole different things that come out, whole learning, he's learning as well, which is, and we talk about this, like I talk about, I learned how to do this way back then. And he's like, yep. He goes, I remember teaching that. He goes, we don't do that no more, because that's not good. So it's great, because he's learning as well. He hasn't stopped learning. So that, I mean, I don't know. He's kind of like a father figure to me. I mean, he's just, super awesome guy. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's been really great having you on, David. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say to either of these subjects to kind of wrap it up? Or?
No, nothing I can think of. Just, again, remind people, get to training, even if it's in-house, if you can get out of the house, get out of that bubble, get out of the county. If you can get out of the state, great. Again, I understand a lot of departments are restricted on budget, and that's the kicker in the whole thing, restrict on that and try to make the best of it and get to what you can. So especially the free stuff, man, if you can get free stuff, go to it if you can. Yeah. So
if nothing else, even if you can't take the whole class back home with you or whatever, there's got to be something in there that you learn or that makes you think about something else that you're taking from that class. So every class, if you can't learn something from every class, I don't think you're thinking about it hard enough.
Right. And so like last night was our training night, and our training officer, he wasn't able to make it last night. So the chief's like, well, who's instructors? And one of them was like, oh, so-and-so's an instructor. So-and-so, Dave's an instructor. And then this sister, like, hey, Dave, what do you want to do for training? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you think? He's like, I don't know. You're the instructor. I'm like, all right, hold on. Give me a second. I'm like, all right, we're going to throw ladders. Like, we're just going to grab the 24 and we're going to throw a 24-foot ladder. So I pulled the 24-foot ladder out and I explained to them, the different manufacturers of ladders. There's Duo Safety and Alkalite. I explained the different weights in ladders because they, none of them knew that. And none of them, I don't think, even knew the two different manufacturers. I explained to them, different ways to carry it. And, the high, the low carry, the low shoulder, high shoulder. And I told them if all else fails and you can't do one of those, just drag the stinking ladder to the building. I mean, Mrs. Smith needs out of the house, out of the second floor. Get the ladder over there and get it up and get her out. It doesn't matter. I went over fly in, fly out. Again, Mrs. Smith is stuck on the second story room and she needs out now. Fly in, fly out does not matter. Yes, you want to have it fly out or whatever the manufacturer recommends, but get the ladder up there and get her out. At the end of the day, that's what matters. Tying off a halyard, I show them how to do that, quickly. And again, I told them, if Mrs. Smith is stuck up there, who cares about tying off the halyard?
It's all situational, and it all depends on how fast you need to do stuff and how fast you can do stuff.
Yes. And again, and that's what I told them, and it's practice. I mean, practice on the simple things like that. Just go grab a ladder and throw it. It don't have to take 2 hours. It don't even have to take an hour. Just go grab the ladder, get your PPE on, grab the ladder, throw it, raise it up, bring it down, put it down, do it like 3 or 4 times. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you're done. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've practiced it, and at least you're getting more comfortable in that muscle memory. Same as like pulling hose or advancing hose, same thing. I don't have to take up a whole hour. It can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes of advancing hose line. It's just getting in that muscle memory of doing it over and over. And there's little training things like that people can do that don't cost any money at all. And it'll make you more efficient on the fire ground, and you won't look like that bumbling guy that just showed up. So
one more thing on the free or cheap networking: don't disregard social media. Facebook groups, like I said, I mentioned before, Engine Company Resurrection is my number one favorite one to go to. Just find other Facebook groups like that to go be a part of the conversation. That's the only way you network on social media. You have to talk back and forth with other people. You can't just go and look at everything. I'm one of those who likes to go look. I don't always talk when it comes to Facebook. With Instagram, I'm more of a talker, tends to be. So I'll kind of have conversations on there. And then shameless plug for not the app, but for my people on Clubhouse.
Oh yeah. Clubhouse is awesome.
Not a sponsor of Clubhouse, but I stinking love it. And that's actually how David, you and I met.
Yes.
And that's how we know people from across the country. We talk with them almost every day.
Yeah.
Who are in the fire service.
Which is crazy. Like the people that are on there that have their own businesses and stuff that we promote, that you and I promote, I know I promote, and I'll tell them, hey, so-and-so has this product and it's the best thing in the world. I just talked to this person last night, or I just talked to him like 5 minutes ago. I know this person. Basically, I'm trying to say, I know this person and I can vouch for them that their stuff is good, or their product is good or what
you tried the product, you use the product, you know the person, you know they're coming from a good place. And you have people from all across the fire service coming on here.
And that's a whole nother network. That's a whole nother network.
Whole nother network.
Another explosion.
So that's not even out of house training. It's a whole different thing. So if you guys have the chance to get on Clubhouse, it might suck out a lot of your time, but it's worth it. And you get to have real conversations with people.
Yeah. The other thing on the whole networking thing is, and again, it's, we're having a fire service conversation here, but even if you start out with that fire service conversation, make sure you branch off into what similar likes or dislikes or whatever. Okay. Sports, food, family, like we're saying in Clubhouse, we talk about, I think we all know about, each other's families, I think a little bit in a pretty good way. I think, we don't know everything about everybody's family, but we know a good chunk of people's families. And, we taught the fire service stuff in there, and,
we're finding a lot of hidden talents for people lately.
Oh my gosh. It's just funny. Like, seriously, like the talents that people like, you're like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't think that person has that talent, which is kind of cool. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's just awesome. So
no, I just had to plug that stuff really quick, just so people who can't make it to other outside conferences right now or whatnot, they have another way to start networking.
For sure. And especially for people going out on Clubhouse or even Instagram, Facebook. If you're not into like your face being seen on Facebook and video and stuff, then Clubhouse definitely is the way, because you're just talking. But if you get out there, definitely start a small conversation. You don't have to like be the whole center of the conversation, but maybe start asking some questions and somebody will answer you back, and just kind of get a feel of the land, and
and there's no dumb questions.
Yeah, and kind of get you out of your shell and get yourself more comfortable. So, and that's what I had to do, really, even outside of social media, just going to like conferences stuff, it's like, hey, strike up small little conversations. And
exactly, you're like, hey, where are you from, what do you do?
Get out of that comfort zone.
If they're in career, what's their schedule? If they're volunteer, what's their main job, and blah blah blah. And you start trailing off into other conversations. You're gonna find a similarity somehow, or something that really fascinates you. So anyways, it was really good talking with you, David.
Awesome. It was great.
All right. Awesome. David, if anyone wants to reach out to you, how are they going to do that?
They can catch me on Facebook, David Stender, and Instagram. My Instagram is Cooper Kent, COUPARKENT. That's both my boys' middle names together. My other kind of Instagram is America Needs Firefighters.
Ooh, yeah, we didn't talk about that yet.
Oh, yeah. So America Needs Firefighters, that is the brainchild of my youngest son, that he came up with back in 2018, I believe. And I had different ideas on how I wanted to do that and what it was supposed to represent and be and what it was for, blah, blah, blah. Initially, I was trying to figure out a way how I could raise some money to give back to volunteer, career, wildland, military firefighters. Maybe, okay, I make some money and I can give back by paying for this guy to go to a conference here, or to pay for him because he needs new boots, or this guy needs gloves or something like that. But I was kind of like, okay, how do I determine who gets what? That's the part I struggled on. And then, so I was going that avenue. And then another instructor that helped me out at Kirkwood at the community college teaching, we were both each other's right-hand man. And he ended up taking his life back in August of 2019, which was a huge kind of blow to me. So after that, I was like, well, ANFF is now for mental health and suicide prevention kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I tried that kind of thing, but that was not, I really want to do that, but it was just not, I don't know, it wasn't working for me I don't know why. That was just not working. And so now it's just a conversation piece. American Needs Firefighters. Basically, I have some T-shirts out there that I have on my Facebook. If you go to that, there's a shop and it takes you to T-shirts. Basically, it's just an avenue for, if I'm wearing the shirt and you say, hey, what's ANF? What's American Needs Firefighters? It's like, oh, well, hey, are you a firefighter? Yeah, I'm a firefighter. Like, oh, me too. It's like, well, what's this mean? Like, well, America needs firefighters. Like, what do you mean they need firefighters? Like, dude, like America needs firefighters. Like, staff, there's departments out there are limited on career guys that, they're running 2-man, 3-man, personnel per truck when they need to have 4-man. You got volunteer fire departments that are limited on guys during daytime. They may not have anybody around during the daytime. They need firefighters. I mean, they're needed. So it's more of a conversation piece thing now. It's just like strike up the conversation of why are you needed? So,
well, and I don't think that's a bad stance to take with that.
Right.
Just because it is a good conversation piece to have overall, but organizations don't necessarily mature automatically into what they're supposed to be in the end.
Right.
And if it's going to mature into something else, it's going to in its own time. But for right now, just having that conversation piece is so important.
Right. So I made up I think I had 4 or 5 design shirts and stuff initially. And so in 2019, I had a lady print up a whole bunch of shirts and I took them to our CETA fire conference as a vendor. I was a vendor there and I sold a buttload of them, but I made a little bit of money, but a good chunk of the money went back to pay for the shirts that I got. So I was like, this is good and bad. I mean, I made some money, but yet I didn't really make money. It's like, more, I was like, it was fine. It was actually, it was good. And then the lady that made my shirt, she actually took on another job. So I was like, that sucks. And I had a website at the time. And I was like, okay, this is more of a hassle than it was. I mean, I need to figure something else where I can just have the shirts out there. It's on a website. It doesn't cost me anything until somebody buys the shirts, then they take a chunk of change out of the cost of the shirt and I get a little portion of it, which was fine. So I went that avenue now. And so that's how that's set up. But I was just, within my designs, I have, they all say ANFF on them. I'm pretty sure one of them on the back of it has calming fears, easing minds, and saving lives, which I caught that from, I think, there's a New York fire department, fire station. That was a saying that they had that I grabbed from somewhere. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I threw that on the back of a shirt with a Maltese cross. The other one is, since America needs firefighters, in my mind, I'm like, how do I represent like the whole United States? So I'm running that through my mind. America, I'm thinking, okay, coast to coast, from East Coast to West Coast, I was thinking. So I came up with a whole design. It's a silhouette from East Coast to West Coast, and it has the Washington Bridge. It has the Statue of Liberty. It has Sears Tower, the St. Louis Arch. It has like a farm with a windmill. I have the Grand Tetons. I have the Utah Buttes. I have the Seattle Space Needle, and then the Golden Gate Bridge. It's all in one silhouette all together. Yeah. So then I did that, and then I realized, oh, I don't have anything for Hawaii or Alaska in there. Like, oh, stink. So I was like, well, how do I do that? Well, then, so now I have, I know, right?
Okay,
I put like the aloha flowers, like Hawaiian flowers.
Oh, okay, that works.
Yeah. So I didn't add anything. I didn't change anything there. But what I was like, well, like how, okay, America needs firefighters. Great. Let's break it down a little bit smaller. I'm like, oh, Iowa needs firefighters. Nebraska needs firefighters. Like, oh, like, how about if I put a Maltese cross on the front of each shirt that has the state flag inside it for each state, and then on the back it just says America needs firefighters.
That's
so
cool.
Me being from Iowa, I could have an Iowa state flag, and you could have Nebraska or Washington or Illinois or whatever state you're from.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of way to represent your state, but also says ANFF on the back. So that's what I got now. I think I have like 5 or 6 states up there right now. So my goal is to get them all. I have 3 of them kind of in the queue that I'm working on. So to get up there. So
that's awesome.
But that's a whole nother avenue to, somebody can get a hold of me. So my Facebook is David Stender or American Needs Firefighters. And then Instagram is Cooper Kent and American Needs Firefighters on there as well.
And of course, Clubhouse.
And Clubhouse. Yes, I'm on Clubhouse. I may not be able to talk all the time, but I try to get in there a little bit with my work projects getting ready to kick off here. Maybe a little bit less time, but I'll definitely try to be on there for sure. So that's I always like, especially those Friday morning ones. Those are the ones that I was always looking forward to, that I usually always look forward to, because you can really get a good array of people from all over the place that maybe they just come in and listen, but nothing says you can't go out there and maybe ping them and ask them a question, or, have a sidebar conversation with them or something. So,
well, it was really great to have you on. People feel free to go contact him and come hang out with us in Clubhouse. And until next time, I guess we will see you guys all later. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Taylor. It was good.
All right.
Thanks for coming by and listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram @Couplings Fire Podcast. See you next time, everybody.